Okay, welcome back. Um, we are going to continue on with PlantKit here, um, a little bit more in the lands version. So consider this a part two of what we were looking at before. So if you want to follow along under with the same files, this is under the technical folder in our FTP under parametric and performance modeling, populations, PGO2. And I'm using the LANS01 file and the O1A file will suffice. Mine here in the video is called O1B because of a small change that will not affect you. So in the last video, we went through, in this file, we went through how to do general placing of plants. So just filling and visualizing according to a plant list that we imported from CSV based on a simple topography and defining an area with planting areas that we want to fill. We also did packing, which was fun to see the difference between uh, a pre-packing example using simply the tool here called pack plants. Not sure why it's not showing up in the bifocals, but it's pack plants here. You can change this to compress them in a little more. We also did sun environment niche. So this was essentially visualizing um, the effect that the sun would have on a particular area and being able to place plants according to that shade and shadow zone. So leveraging shade and shadow parameter from our CSV files and plugging that in here with a packing algorithm. I'm going to go through two more of these. There's a total of 9. We will cover more of these in class on Tuesday, but the one I wanted to cover in this video is using a CSV niche data field from CSV to build a niche, because this might actually be quite useful for your own studies. And the second is layouts and, oh, sorry, not layouts and patterns, but using objects other than plants per se. So we'll see what that looks like in a second here. The first one is using a field from the CSV file. So again, CSV is a comma separated value file, basically a fancy way of, or a more raw version of an Excel file. And what I wanted to explore in this one little sample here was to look at flower color and how the flower color could be mapped onto a preference of where to put plants in a similar way. So that's the intent. The intent is to use plants in a particular zone so that they get put in a strategic place according to their particular color. So by the time you've done this file, it will look like this, where a priority of greenish plants will go inside this zone that I've defined as green. And the way to control that and set that up will be described. So let me go back to just preview only. It starts the same way. We have our geometry, which informs, I'm actually going to turn off something here, which is context, a little easier to see. I have my geometry of my plaza floor and some berm features here and some depressions. These collectively got fed into add to geoset, draw topo, and then a mesh at the end. The mesh was used to make an environment, feeding into the topo. Cell size is 1 meter, and the curve is slightly bigger than the area in question. That just seems to be a preference from the authors of the plant kit tool. I then want to enhance the environment. So if we recall from our presentation about plant kit, we can enhance, actually, it's a little easier to see it this way. We can enhance an environment with particular things. Upslope, sunshade, we did sunshade the last one. There's proximity, closeness to objects. But in this case, I'm going to enhance the environment by using a component called add shape values. So this one is under analysis, add shape, and it says give me E, environment, define a name, give me a shape, and a value. Pretty simple enough. I have environment coming from my base environment, feeding E into E. The name, I'm going to call it flower color. In this case, I do need to consider that it needs to match what is in the CSV file, flower color. It needs to be in American spelling without the U. Again, just a limitation of the plugin itself. This is just preparatory. And then I can have some fun here by defining a shape, which will carry a certain value. So in this case, I drew this shape in the Rhino file itself. It doesn't need to be in Rhino. It could be in Grasshopper geometry. It just so happened that I set one curve in this case, it being referenced in. And under the design file, it is called shape layer. So let me just click off of this so you can see it's this circle. And the circle is being used with the color green. I can change this by attaching a swatch color, and I gave it a relative greenish color according to the HSV values. But if you wanted to know, that's where it's coming from. So that's that shape. And now I have enriched my environment, and I'm using that to, I can always visualize it here for troubleshooting, sanity. This is what the underlying mesh with the color looks like. So this will be used to attract or put green looking plants from my CSV file that has greenish looking plants. Right now, this one here, the paper gray birch, its so-called flower color is green. There are some other RGB colors which get close to green, and we'll talk about how those fit. But for now, you just need to know that it is defining this. This is what the analysis layer of the enriched environment looks like. Now, to define the plant area, it's the same as before. Where do the plants specifically want to go? It is these berm curves. It's just a two-dimensional limitation of where to place them. And like before, I'm referencing in my plants. Again, it's up here, pulling in my plants from the CSV file. I will just highlight these, not needed. And I will color these a certain color just so that we can follow along. So this is the file being pulled in, and it's referenced by this species key of common name. And when I'm done pulling in the plants, I then add this, I add a niche to the plants based on flower color. So how do I do this? I am going to, in the data subtab, I am going to, let's see here, get my data niche map constraint, niches from data, apply niches from data, that was the one, which says, give me your plant list, tell me which fields you want me to consider, and I will give you a plant list again that is now respecting the field, and niche values. Easy enough. I just take P from plants being pulled in, give it there, and this field needs to be exactly the same as the field I want to query inside of the .csv file. So in this case, it's flower color, written in American spelling, no U, no extra spaces, syntax, and spelling matters. So I have a little panel here that I use to query that specific field. And next, I want to now extract the niche value or the plant value from this consideration. So in this case, I am going to draw the, I'm going to use the draw subtab and get plant niche info. Simple enough, it just says give me P or N, and I will tell you the constraints of that niche, the domains, the cushions, and a printed value, which for most cases can be ignored. This component is super easy. I seem to be stuck on something here. There we go. I give it N in this case from niches, and I want to create the niche. So let's see what's different here. What I need to do is apply the niche of this field to the data. I need to extract some information from it to actually apply that niche to the data. Sounds kind of strange because we seem to be duplicating things. I could always just go from N to N here to merge plant data with the niche. But the reason I use this particular component called create niche is to actually give it a cushion value. Cushion value, let's just see where we can pull this from. It's under create niche, and it says tell me the constraints, tell me the domains, both of which are easy peasy plug in from here, and tell me a cushion. The cushion value basically says here, I wanted to say, hey, please make for me this thing with this color, this zone with only green plants. And if we recall, this is what the analysis looks like. The cushion value basically says, how close to green can I actually be? Should I be 100% green only, or can I have some fluctuation in color value? Now, this is particular to the data field you're working with. In this case, 190 in the value of the cushion means In this case, it is a value of RGB. So 190 up to whatever the height of this domain is. I think it's upper limit of 500, lower limit of negative 500. You can see that. Basically, it's going to add 190 to the RGB values, either up or down. So it's going to say how close to green from this RGB value can I be to put down a plant. I gave it a value of 190. If I wanted it to be only green, I could take this down much lower, maybe something like 50. We'll see what effect this has in a second, but I just want to tell you what the cushion value actually means. Once that's done, you can use what's called merge plant niche, which is in the data sub tab. Let's see here. Merge plant niche, which says give me your original plant list, give me the plant names you want me to affect, and give me your new niche. So this one's pretty easy. We have our plant list here from before, P, and P also carries P names, so I can just pull both of those values in, P and plant names, and then N, which is the niche. At the end of it, it's the same as before. This is exactly the same as filling and visualizing the plants as all the other ones we've looked at so far. No different. Of course, without the packing. But let's go here. So I'm pulling in the new modified plants from the plant niche. The area is the same. Buffer, I don't really even need this. I am deciding to pack it with 100 steps, so it's going to really pack it in. We're going to get this down. It's not even super necessary. And then I need to extract this value to get plant info and can eventually visualize it. So what I want to do actually is show you that, hey, in this case, because most of my plants, let me actually turn on the topo, even though I wanted to plant inside of this zone on top of the hill, and I have the circle defining the green beneath it, not that many plants are green. You can tell from here, I actually really only have one plant that's green. So this is actually not planting many plants that are green. If I have more plants that are kind of purple, maybe I want to have this as a purple zone and see what happens. So here, instead of being green, I could change this to a, oops. If I'm changing this dynamically, it's going to take time to update. So it's running all the calculations. The technique before is when you're changing something this volatile or busy, you might want to lock your solver. So that's middle mouse button, lock button. And I can change this as much as I want, and it doesn't affect the calculation. So I wanted to test my hypothesis of purple and see what I get. So I will accept this and now unlock it. And inside the purple zone, still not much is getting put here, which means maybe my cushion is too low. And so I may want to increase my cushion here by quite a bit. And now you can see the purple is filling this zone in much more. And more than actually anywhere else on the site. So this is a level of control for putting down plants. Now again, I could change this. I know that I have quite a few yellow plants. So I'm going to do is lock the solver, go to yellow-ish, unlock, and I see more yellowy, a little bit of green, even a little bit of purple creeping in, probably because the cushion's too big, and very little reds. Just do this one more time. Maybe I'll go to the red spectrum. And now I see there's some reds, some purples, a little bit of browny greens, and some reds in here. And if I wanted to try to pack this in a little more, not much has happened. The packing didn't really clearly do that much, but there's room for experimentation. So this is to control plantings according to a shape that you might want to draw and use the shape relative to a parameter inside your CSV file, like color. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn this off visually. And what I wanted to show you is how to use things that are not plants. So the goal here, set an existing file, object database. I'll go over this in a second. But the objective here is to put down a series of blue solar collectors and some white wind turbines. So very much not like plants. And maybe these could be energy generation components, etc. I'll talk about its limits and its advantages in a second. So the beginning, if I go back to display only, starts the same as all others. Geometry, turn off the topo. Geometry goes in, creates a mesh from draw topo. That mesh is used to create an environment with a healthy buffer and the cell size. I now have an environment data. This environment data, I then tell it where to put the plants. In this case, I decided to put the plants just on one particular hill or berm. And then I am basically feeding that into fill area with pattern. A little bit different here. I'm using a pattern component. I'll explain in a second. I could also just do the same as last time to make it a little easier. Layout, fill plants constrained. We can try both. Here's my A value going into A. And it's asking for P, plants. So what am I going to do with my plants if I don't want it to be plants, but I want it to be a solar array, wind turbine, stuff like that? Well, let's open up the file that is in question here. This is a slightly different view of the screen FTP, but for you, it will be in this directory, object database, O1 CSV, and I'm just going to find the same directory for myself here. Populations, there we go. So this is what the file looks like, controlling my solar array and a wind turbine. I have a scientific name, a common name, height in feet. So 0 point, again, feet, read this as meters, but it needs to be written in this exact way. Interpret this as 0.1 meters. Spread is in meters, so this is 0.1 meters tall, so 10 centimeters tall, 5 meters wide, a very big round object. And I have a value here of energy collected, or pretend unit of 10. Maybe it's 10, maybe like 10 megawatts or something. And I have flower color because I want to color the little mesh objects. Uh, this is not really needed. This is a twin motion suggestion. I can probably, it's not needed, just confusing. So this is the data being pulled in. And when it gets pulled in, I'm sorting it by its common name. I'm just making sure that all the names I want are being pulled in only. It's a bit repetitive, may be needed. It's needed on my computer. It may not be needed on your computer. Like before, I'm just showing you what's inside of the plant data itself. These are the official attributes. These are the attribute keys like area, center, color, fixed. You can see here what those values are. But then there's also the data. And data are things that are not standard. So here it is energy collected. And for object number 1, energy collected is solar array. Its scientific name, just for fun, Solaris. Spread is 1 meter. Its color is 89, 175, 255. Its height is that, and TM suggestion not needed, but would be that. This corresponds directly with this scientific name, Solaris 1. Here it is, being pulled in exactly as I want. Just a sanity check. Now that I have these plants, I can use them here. It may take a couple seconds just to load. Looks like it took a little longer than expected, 29.8 seconds. This could be an initial load. I'm not entirely sure. I will investigate in 1 second. It seems to be very slow. Let's see what happens. Why is it going so slow? This is a good check, just to see if things are breaking. Seems to be getting better, but it's still quite slow. This is very slow. This is my area. Yes, that seems to be fine. I have my plants. I'm pulling out the plants that is needed. I'm trying to fill the area plants with a constraint, which is what I was doing up here as well. Fill area with plants constrained. Here's my list of plants. Here's my area. I'm just going to shut a few of these down just to see what happens here. Oh, interesting. It has filled in a lot of plants here. That's why. It has done a crazy job at filling them all in. Interesting. So, what's happening here, the reason why these took so long is because it is basically its self-spacing is 0.3048, which is pretty small. So I will need to take a look at how to adjust this, but you can see what's happening here is that it's making such a huge amount of the wind turbines. It does not seem to be working as well as I thought it would. Um, and I wonder why it would be doing this. The W values here of the weight, self-spacing, the same. I will have to investigate this, apologies, but let's go back and use the other technique. The other technique that I wanted to try, which now may be very advantageous and handy, is to use the paving kit to create a pattern. This one's pretty easy. I didn't even have to follow tutorials for these. They're pretty straightforward. I wanted to add a pattern to an area. So add pattern to area, which says give me a value of A. So I can create a paving area A. And I had a curve here, which is the zone I wanted to create the pattern on, period. So I can just copy this over. And the pattern type, you can see here if I hover over it, it says you can make a grid, a running bond, a hex, try, herringbone, radial, default. So I can make something from 0 to 4, 0 to 4. And it's asking for some basic things here in order to create a pattern. So I can try different patterns, of course. And maybe for simplicity, I'll keep it at 2. I can always change length and width if I wanted to, which I think I did down here. You can see here it made this particular pattern. I then trimmed the pavers to the area itself and got all the points from inside the centers of this hex, and then just have a series of points at the end. And these points can be used to turn on the fill area with pattern constrained. I'm going to get these plants to create their representation. So here are a series of flat solar collectors and white wind turbines on top of that hill. So I'm planting non-plant objects. I'm populating this hill with things that are not really plants. I will need to investigate why this fill area with plants constrained was not working. Apologies that did not work out immediately, but I will investigate how you can do this on your own. So thank you. This was covering another one of these, what I call core workflows. We did CSV data niche according to color and a shape that I designed. It's a circle, wasn't anything crazy. I'm sure you guys will come up with something much more creative. And then planting things other than plants. In this case, solar collector and wind turbines that follow these parameters. Okay, I will send over the next video.